The Tigers thrashed the Bombers to end their week from hell. The Power send off Robbie Gray in style, and the Demons make one big September statement against the Lions. Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by Amy. I'm Riley Beveridge. I'm joined by Kane Cornes live from Adelaide tonight. We'll get to the reasons why soon. But Kane, first, we'll start with the big story. That happened at the MCG. Richmond kicked the first 6 goals of the third quarter to thrash Essendon.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? I mean, they hung in there for a half, didn't they, the Bombers? But in the end, Richmond were always going to be too good. They put their foot down in the third quarter, as we're seeing here, with their key players coming to play. McIntosh goes back and kicks that. We're going to see Tom Lynch get involved. He kicked 3 goals in a row. But it's been such an emotional rollercoaster week for Essendon. It's unsurprising that they weren't able to hang on to a side in Richmond who go into the finals in really, really good form. And they'll start favourites whoever they play next week, you would think, and have the capability to cause some carnage with the players that they've got in form and the experience that they've had in September.
Looks like they'll either play Brisbane or Collingwood next week. But we must get to the Bombers after just such a turbulent week at Tullamarine. We know all about Ben Rutten. His future was made almost untenable earlier this week when they went after so publicly Alistair Clarkson and so unsuccessfully as well. This is him in the rooms after the game, quite emotional. Essendon's new president, David Barham, speaking earlier this week, saying a decision will be made on his future on Sunday.
It's been a bit of a circus, hasn't it, really? And you can see that Ben Rutten knows in the change rooms there now that will be his last game. Speaking to some family members, clearly emotional, really impressed with the way that he has carried himself. It was nice to see Richmond players acknowledging him. Of course, he's got a long history at the Richmond Footy Club, so he would know that it's his last game in charge, and you would think the Bombers would have to make that decision tomorrow. It's surprising that they haven't made that decision already, but yeah, it's been a bit of a shambles, a bit of a mess at Essendon. I don't mind the fact that they've been ruthless if they weren't convinced that Ben Rutten was the right coach to lead them forward, but the way that it's been handled has been bordering on disgraceful, really, and the treatment of Ben himself from that footy club has been really disappointing.
Richmond in some fine form going into September. One minor blip for them on Saturday night. Tom Lynch coming off the ground late in the last quarter with what Richmond described as groin soreness. Now, he'd kicked 5 goals. He was closing on Charlie Curnow. This is a minor worry 2 weeks out from the finals.
Yeah, 5-2, 19 disposals he had, as you said, 11 score involvements. He's the hottest forward, certainly key forward in the game right now. This is where the pre-finals bye makes it so interesting and favourable to teams like Richmond, who have done a lot of work late. They're going to get the opportunity to rest players like Lynch, and it sets them up beautifully to go in fresh. Whereas previously they wouldn't have had the luxury of resting him, and that's why the advantage of finishing top 4 and winning that qualifying final was so pivotal. But now the landscape has changed, and it certainly favours the bottom 4 sides in the 8 like Richmond.
There was one good news story, at least for Essendon tonight. Michael Hurley making his return after 701 days out of the game. Obviously, he had that life-threatening hip infection. It's a remarkable story to come back from, and with 2 minutes to go, he managed to get himself on the scoreboard as well.
Terrific scenes, wasn't it, from both teams, the acknowledgement of him, the work that he's done to get himself back. There's his family there celebrating. Amazing. All the Essendon players came from everywhere, and even the Richmond players acknowledged that. So terrific story of the club, been through some really difficult times, such a loyal servant, played wherever they asked him to have played, and unfortunately he deserved a lot more September success than what he was able to experience in his career, but so glad he got back for that last game.
Now we'll head over to the Adelaide Oval where the showdown happened. Before we get stuck into this one though, we need to provide the context of the week because it was quite remarkable. Tom Jonas and Ollie Wines making some pretty big comments before the game. Tom Jonas, the captain, saying that Adelaide was entitled and arrogant. Ollie Wines backed up that entitlement call. We then had Matthew Nicks, Adelaide's coach, come out and said that Port Adelaide was ruining Robbie Gray's own farewell with how much they were talking about it. I mean, set the scene for us over there in South Australia. What did you make of the week just gone?
Well, I think the strategy from Port Adelaide was to make sure they were switched on. I mean, that was the thing behind it, to put some real accountability behind them. They'd been disappointed with the last few showdowns. They thought Adelaide had got after them, whereas they wanted to get after Adelaide, and they thought those comments would fire the players up. And really, when you put it out there, you want to be accountable for your performance. So it was strategic in a way to do that, and it was the key leaders, along with my brother, putting it on the agenda nice and early. And fortunately for Port Adelaide, they were able to back it up in what was a really strong performance. And that's why Port Adelaide fans should have some faith in Ken Hinkley moving forward, because despite the underwhelming start at 0-5, the players never lost faith in the coach. They never packed it in, and they were competitive for the majority of the season. And that played out once again tonight in a big showdown.
It was a bit of a slog in the first half, but Port Adelaide really broke that game open in the third quarter, 4-1. They end up running out 56-point winners.
Yeah, they were non-competitive, I thought, Adelaide, in this third term. They came out after half-time so flat, which is really disappointing. Like, when it had been put on you as a footy club from the opposition and you didn't get any response. We saw the way that Collingwood responded after Ed Langdon went after them publicly. They didn't take anything. They went after the opposition physically. So this is what Adelaide served up. This is basically training run sort of stuff, waltzing the ball through the middle of the ground. So Matthew Nicks would be really disappointed, because for the most part of the season, his side has been largely competitive. Their skill level at times lets them down, but their contest work has been good. That completely fell apart, as we're seeing here, with Port Adelaide walking into goals, and Pau Pepper's going to run on to the end of this one. He had an excellent season. So really strong performance from Port Adelaide. But after the week that Adelaide had and the opposition really putting it on them, I thought it was an incredibly disappointing performance from them tonight.
Now, the reason you're in Adelaide, Kane, obviously invited into the rooms pre-game for your great mate Robbie Gray's final match. This is the photo, a great photo there with some Port Adelaide legends. Take us through it. What was it like pre-game? What was it like watching one of your good mates run out for the final time?
Oh, it was amazing to see those faces there, Matty Primus, Wanganeen, Lade, Brogan, my brother, Dom Cassisi, former captain, and then to head into the change rooms to hear Ken Hinkley's address prior to the game. He actually got each of us to address the team, which was a bit nerve-wracking and unexpected. And there's the great man, Robbie Gray, slotting through his first of the night. What a performer and what a player. And once again, he was enormous, 13 disposals, kicked a couple of goals, 3 goal assists, and it could have been a bigger night. He could have ended up with 4 or 5 if he have kicked more accurately. But yeah, if he's not Port Adelaide's best, he's certainly the second best behind Warren Treadray. You see there Ollie Wines and his great mate Travis Boak, who he started his career with back in 2007 together. So one of Port Adelaide's best. He's a walk-up start in the Australian Football Hall of Fame, and it was a nice fitting way for him to go out tonight.
He finishes with 367 goals, second, as you mentioned, only behind Warren Treadray in Port Adelaide's AFL goal-kicking list. It's a Friday night footy at the Gabba, where this was billed as a top 4 showdown, but at the end of the day, Melbourne absolutely trounced Brisbane. It was built off this first half. They led by 66 points at half-time.
Yeah. Smashed. Brisbane got smashed at home in a game that they needed to win. So it's one of the biggest disappointments, sort of a home and away game all year, Brisbane, what they served up, how easy this was. And we'll get to Melbourne's forward line in a moment, but their efficiency going in, they had 25 scoring shots from just 50 entries. So that's Brisbane defence completely falling apart, and Melbourne finally been able to get some cohesion and a connected forward line, which has been found wanting. But yeah, you look at those first half numbers, plus 20 in disposals, plus 13 in contested possessions. They got beaten up around the ball, and as I mentioned, their forwards just went to town. Pickett and Fritsch both kicked 4 goals. So I just thought Melbourne finally were able to find that connection that they'd been wanting for a long, long time, and an ominous sign for the rest of the competition in what they served up in a huge game. And then I guess the biggest loser of the round will be Brisbane and the fallout from that.
It's the second time this season Brisbane's been bullied by Melbourne. We saw that Thursday night game at the MCG earlier this year. Are you worried about them going into finals?
Yeah, 100%, Riley. I mean, you couple that with their finals record as well. Chris Fagan's got to get up to the coach's box and regain some control over the game, because this is what is confronting him. I mean, a straight sets exit in finals, in a couple of weeks. I mean, what does it say for his legacy? Is he the right coach to lead them forward? He's done a pretty good job to get them where they're at, but hasn't been able to take them where they need to go. He looks confused on the bench. He looks like he doesn't have any composure there. And Brisbane lose control and they lose momentum far too easily. I'd love to see him get back up to the coach's box and start coaching the team rather than just sitting in the dugout looking frustrated like he was again on Friday night.
There was a flashpoint in this one that continued right throughout the game. It involved Brisbane's captain, Dane Zorko, and Melbourne defender Harrison Petty, who was quite emotional at three-quarter time. Now, both clubs spoke about this after the game and during the game. Dane Zorko since apologised to Harrison for an inappropriate comment that he made towards him. The AFL investigated it and said they'll take no further action. It was a pretty unsavoury look, though, wasn't it?
no doubt about that. And he lost complete composure. I firstly, before we get to Zorko, loved the way Melbourne handled it. That's a sign of a good footy club. From the way they addressed it with Troy Chaplin and Simon Goodwin, speaking to Harrison Petty, encouraging him to stay in the moment, then to start him on the bench for the start of that third quarter until he could regain his composure and get his head back, to the way they addressed it after the game. Alan Richardson spoke really calmly and methodically. Simon Goodwin the same. And then we saw Gawn and May's leadership after the game as well, and them standing by one of their players who had clearly been hurt. So I just thought it was a sign of a really good footy club for them to be able to take control of what was an emotional situation. So well handled, brilliant. And then we get on to Zorko. So that was not the only moment in the game where he lost his cool, and he has lost his head before in the past, and he's been a poor example for his side. So this is some of his stuff on the night, and this is well before the incident that happened prior to three-quarter time. So he wanted to fight all night. And that's all well and good if you're actually putting it on the line when the ball's there to be won. But they were smashed around the footy, like absolutely smashed, -10 contested footy at half-time. And he was running around doing this. So Melbourne have been to the top of the tree and won a premiership. Brisbane haven't. And they're almost laughing at his antics. So yeah, I didn't think it was the greatest night in the legacy of Dane Zorko on Friday night.
It's a strange sort of situation. It was a strange night for Dane Zorko. They're, of course, as we mentioned before, 1-5 in finals under Chris Fagan. 5 of those 6 games at the Gabba as well. They'll go into an elimination final now without Cam Rayner as well, suspended for 1 match for this sling tackle on Ben Brown. It was graded careless conduct, medium impact, high contact. Now, Ben Brown came from the field with blood coming from his face as well. What did you make of this?
Yeah, I've got some sympathy for him. I didn't think there was any intent to hurt. I mean, it was a really good physical tackle. I didn't think there was an extra slinging motion. I can understand why he's been suspended for a week. I'm not upset that the AFL have done that and really looking after players who are in a vulnerable position. But he did have the ball the whole time. And, I think Cam Rayner was trying to show some intent, but probably just took it that extra mile with the take to ground of Ben Brown. Now, fortunately, he wasn't concussed, or it could have been worse for Cam Rayner. But look, they'll miss him. We saw what he did last week against the Saints, and he was the match winner. So, he's a vital player for them, clearly, and he'll be sorely missed.
They'll miss Noah Answorth as well, another really important part of that side. He was offered a 1-match ban for striking Alex Neil-Bullen. We'll head to the ladder now because there was heaps of ramifications from the round's action so far. Brisbane, of course, slide out of the top 4. What a game it's going to be tomorrow between Collingwood and Carlton. Collingwood needing to win to get into the top 4, Carlton needing to win to stay in the top 8.
Yeah, well, it's an extra week of finals, isn't it? I mean, there'll be 85,000, hopefully 90 at the MCG tomorrow, and it's all on the line. I'm big on the fact that Carlton have to win. Some games you just have to win. There's the bottom half of the ladder. Clearly, the Western Bulldogs can still make it. If things go their way, they win by enough, and Carlton lose by enough. So we're essentially down to 9 teams for that last spot. But I'm huge on the fact that Carlton and their senior players have to experience September. Cripps hasn't played in a final. Reading Walsh, Kerno Mackay, all these players been in the system for a fair time now. Core of that group have to experience what September is like, and there's no excuses for them losing tomorrow, particularly after they started 8-2 in the season.
We'll head to the nation's capital now, where Fremantle kept its top 4 hopes alive. Tell you what, they found themselves 31 points down to the Giants and then had to fight back late.
Gee, they were flat, weren't they? I mean, they started this game so flat. It was one of those ones where you feel like they just thought they were going to come and get a nice win, cruise into finals, experiment with a few things. They started Sean Darcy forward, even though he won the medal last week against West Coast. Nat Fyfe was back into the team, but they were clearly trying to nurse Nat Fyfe through and get him a game here with 60-odd% game time, then play waffle. But it was good to see Fremantle flick the switch, as they can do. When their pressure ramps up and their small forwards get after the opposition, then they're a really good side. And this is what happened in the last quarter, where they were able to put the foot down and claw that lead back before, kicking away. And that man, Michael Walters, in his 200th game, kicked 3. Aish was really important in the last quarter. Some of their small forwards got to work. I am concerned about their forward line structure, though. So 6 marks inside 50 from 69 entries. We've spoken about it repeatedly, Riley. I feel like I'm a broken record, but Lobb wasn't there clearly. Fyfe's underdone. Taberner's not there. Who's going to stand up and kick their goals in a final? You wouldn't be surprised if they exited without winning a final just because of that lack of a target forward of the ball. hopefully Lobb will be okay, and he's been their best forward this year, but that was exposed today against the Giants.
It's interesting, as you mentioned, Justin Longmuir, a Fremantle coach, speaking afterwards, not ruling out the possibility of Nat Fyfe playing Waffle in the pre-finals bye, just get some minutes under his belt. Now, there was a really interesting moment just before three-quarter time when the game was right in the balance. Sam Switkowski wins a free kick directly in front of goal. Fremantle's behind at this point. They're 5 points down, as you can see on the scoreboard. But it's David Mundy who goes back and kicks the goal, one of the best kicks in Fremantle's side. Have a look at where he was when this free kick was paid. And look at this, he shows no urgency to get over there and somehow still gets the ball.
And he's right near the umpire there. Like, the umpire's running in with him and doesn't see that he was about fifth in line to take that kick. We know he's one of the clutch players in the competition and has done it moments before, and many moments before, I should say. Look at the score and how important it was in the context of the game. He was never missing that. How he got the footy, he's basically run from the centre circle to get that. He's smart, and he was a lot more switched on than what the umpires were in Canberra.
We'll get to our Saturday start now, thanks to Taylor Made. It's a man that might be the All-Australian fullback, Sam Taylor. He had 20 disposals, 12 intercepts, 9 intercept marks, 5 contested marks. He was awesome at fullback.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a round so far first that we've given the Saturday star to a player in a losing side. I certainly can't remember it happening too often, but he picked himself for that today. And a breakout season, really. You're right. Can't say too much, but he'll be incredibly hard to leave out of the All-Australian team, albeit that tall defender spots is incredibly competitive. So the numbers you mentioned, 20 touches, 9 intercept marks. I think the record in the history of the game is 10. So he was one off that. They kept kicking it to him, which was interesting, but the best defenders in the game back themselves. They're not just happy to spoil, they really want to mark the footy. And that's where I feel like his game has gone to the new level, as well as beating the best forwards in the competition time and time again this year.
We'll head to Marvel Stadium now, where Gold Coast finished its season on a high. It was thanks to a forgotten man, in a sense. Alex Sexton hasn't played since round 3. He's been stuck in the VFL, but he comes back today and kicks 6 goals, a career high.
Yeah, I don't know why he's been stuck in the VFL. Every time I watch him play, I think there's something about him. He has had some criticism about perhaps a bit of on-field selfishness, where he has gone for glory too often rather than doing the team thing. But yeah, career high 6 goals, as you said. He's second all-time on Gold Coast leading goal kicker behind Tom Lynch. Contracted for next year, but if I was him, I'd be looking at other opportunities, albeit Isaac Rankin goes to Adelaide. You would think, so that opens up the spot, but he's far too good to be spending the majority of the year in the VFL, and he showed that again today.
What did you make of Gold Coast season? It was their 10th win today, equalled a club high, They had a percentage of 102 in the end. They wanted to get their percentage above 100. They did today. Is it a pass for you?
Probably not. I've thought about this long and hard today. I think finals would have been a pass for me, so they haven't done that. And at what point are they going to get that and jump that level? And from the position that they were in at times this year, particularly sort of just over the halfway point of the year, we would have thought they were fully in contention. And once again, their season petered out a little bit, and they've had some disappointing performances. They played North today. What do you take out of it? North, one of the worst teams we've ever seen. So hard to take too much out of this last game. I think they're on the right track, provided that they don't have a mass exodus of players again, and the Rankin one's going to hurt.
I'm not sure a club that's won two games all season has been as optimistic as North Melbourne had been going into this one. That was based on what happened on Friday. They got the man they were after for so long in Alistair Clarkson. He signed a 5-year deal to become their senior coach, the 4-time premiership coach. This was huge for the Kangaroos. It has the ability to just turn around this entire future, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It was a massive get for them. Congratulations to them. Methodical planning. They went about it with an actual plan, as opposed to what Essendon had done. There's the scenes at Marvel today. So well done. What I will say is the victory lap can stop now. I mean, because it feels like Sonia Hood and her team are fully on a victory lap. You'd be forgiven for thinking they'd won the premiership, really. Let's get back to reality. They've won 2 games for the season. They got smashed and embarrassed by a team who were 12th on the ladder coming in today. There's holes everywhere on their list, and whilst Alistair Clarkson solves a big problem, their list is a mess, and it's going to take a long time to fix that. So he won't be the Messiah for them, albeit he will help a little bit.
We'll head to our Amy Clangers now. It's a very Tom Hawkins themed Amy Clangers today. Have a look at this. This is before the game, running through the banner. He got so swept away in danger 300, he's forgotten his jumper, he's worn the T-shirt.
And I love the fact that his teammates saw the funny side of it. Isaac Smith thought it was the funniest thing ever. You could see him in the background there just having a laugh, but it didn't matter because they were just red hot again. And continuing the theme, he's not happy. He's not happy at all with Tyson Stengel ignoring him. He's bemused. He said, come on. There's a goal that I'll never get back. So Stengel learned his lesson, Riley.
He did. And I love that he kicks this one to Tom Hawkins, and then he goes back, gives a little point to Tyson Stengel, and he says, yep, I might have missed you on the last one, but I got you there. Hey, Patrick Dangerfield, his 300th game today. He's been an awesome player for so long. Still needs that premiership success. It was their 13th straight win this game against the Eagles. Geez, they tried hard to get him a goal for his 300th, but he just couldn't find one.
Yeah. No, he couldn't. I don't know why he's passing that off. Surely he just goes back and kicks a snap around the body, trying to get him involved here. But he fumbled that one and then saw the funny side of it. But yeah, it's nice to tick that milestone off. It's always a nerve-wracking one to get there. And once you get it, you can sort of relax. He sprays that one there, as he can do. But what a player he's been. 8-time All-Australian. There's the chair off there, Zach Tui, and his good friend Joel Selwood. I feel like it's been an excellent move for him. And 6 prelim finals he's played in and 1 grand final in that 300 games. 23 finals for Patrick Dangerfield. He's going to be there in and amongst it again. And if anyone deserves a premiership, it is that man. And the Cats have won 13 in a row. They're going to be incredibly difficult to beat.
We've got some big players coming back over the next few weeks, but they unveiled something new tonight. They had Isava Radigalia go into the backline. Now, they've been trialling this in the VFL over the last couple of weeks. It's worked really well for them. And he looks so at home down back today.
Yeah, hadn't played AFL since round 3. And as you said, 22 intercepts in the last 2 weeks in the VFL. And didn't miss a beat tonight. So, I mean, they're just blessed with depth. I feel like, they've got their top 5 sort of players, and the rest underneath that are so even, Geelong. And that's almost been by design. So they had some really good players that didn't play again tonight. They've had the luxury of being able to rest some key players in the lead-up to September. They'll get the week off, which is going to be vitally important for Jeremy Cameron. I don't know if I'd play him. Look, I'm not a doctor and I'm not familiar with how severe that hamstring is, but there's no such thing as a 1 or 2 week hamstring in my eyes. I feel like they should take the punt that they win that qualifying final, particularly if they're playing someone like Fremantle or Collingwood. I think they'll easily account for them and just make sure Jeremy Cameron gets that extra week and is right to go for a prelim final and then the grand final after that.
It's been a big day of footy. It's going to be a bigger day on Sunday. We'll get to the rest of the round now. I don't think I can remember a home and away season game as big as this Carlton-Collingwood one, particularly if the Bulldogs win earlier in the day. The ramifications for that are huge. I'm
with you. And they'll know their fate, won't they, really? They'll know exactly what needs to happen. So that adds another dimension to it. It's just, some games you've got to rock up and win. And that's how I feel about this for Carlton. It is massive for them, particularly with what went on that we looked at in the last 2 minutes of that game last week. They have just needed to win 1 out of the last 4. They've lost the last 3, so it's down to this one. Turn up and win Blues, and you play finals. Simple as that.
They're expecting 90,000 plus at the MCG. Who are you tipping?
I've tipped Carlton. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling that they will get up. Collingwood, incredible side, been terrific, but I feel like Carlton's tall forwards in Curnow and Mackay, that's where Collingwood have struggled with Howe and Moore when they have lost this year. So they may be able to get after them in that space.
I'm tipping Carlton as well, but never rule out Collingwood. They've proved us wrong before this season. Kane, love your work. Hopefully back in the studio in a fortnight's time. Enjoy the footy on Sunday, and we'll see you next time on the Round So Far.
Can't wait, mate. Outstanding from you as always. See you in a couple of weeks.